Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Kicking the Bucket live stream. I'm really glad you're here. We're really glad you're here. I'm your host and creator of the series, Ondi, like Gandhi, but without the G, Kinsey. And these live streams are a companion to our fiction podcast series. So we really encourage you to follow the link below and go listen to the series. It's a dramedy, so you're going to laugh and cry. And it has a really beautiful immersive soundscape around it. So it's kind of like a TV series for your ears. Mm-hmm. It is an 8-episode series, and episode 6 just dropped yesterday. Huzzah! So go ahead and give it a listen. Meanwhile, today I'm very, very excited to kind of re-welcome Alex Casas, an end-of-life educator and doula with International Doula Life Movement, and founder of Pale Hearse, which is an organization that educates and connects families with end-of-life care, resources, and services. Mm-hmm. So welcome, Alex. So glad you're here today.
Thanks for having me. It's been really fun just being able to kind of keep this conversation going in this format. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, because Alex was one of our facilitators for our live stream, our listening clubs. You were on episode 5, right? So I think so.
4.
That was a couple of weeks ago. No, we just did. You were episode 4.
It must have been 4 then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because yesterday was episode 6, so you were not there the week before. So yes, you were episode 4. So if anybody's interested in hearing that conversation as well, it's on our YouTube channel. You can go listen to the replay. So today we're excited to talk about some advanced care planning or advanced planning. They're kind of intertwined, the funeral industry and the importance of community in all of this. So for our viewers and listeners, I'm going to start us off with some questions. And then if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat. Or if you're watching the replay, please continue this conversation on our socials. Mm-hmm. So Alex, to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I've been in the end-of-life and funeral space for over 14 years. I started as a mortuary restoration specialist, kind of working in high-volume care centers, medical examiner offices, and funeral homes of different denominations. Then I decided to become an end-of-life doula, so that I could really help families in a more holistic and comprehensive way. So that kind of geared me towards a lot of my current passions of really just helping families get informed so that they're making choices that are right for them, educating so that our community understands ways of participation for a more healing experience, and just empowering people with their options. And that's kind of what I've been doing for the past 14 years. I'm really honored to be in this work.
I didn't know that I was gonna ask you this, but last night we were talking about some of the confusion around end-of-life doulas. And so working with the International Doula Life Movement, is there a standard definition? Like what does it mean when somebody is trying to find, or is what is it that end-of-life doulas do?
Yeah, that's a really common question, right? And we think about doula, we sometimes think about birth doulas, and we really kind of can associate that with that transition. The birth doula being there for the individual who's birthing life into this world and helping them holistically through the process. And that's kind of what an end-of-life doula is. We really fill in the gaps. We're not taking over any of the care team. We're actually just contributing to that care team to fill in those gaps for a more comprehensive experience for the individual, but also the family involved and the caregivers involved. And so we're helping with emotional, spiritual, practical needs as well. We're not regulated yet, which is something that I'm sure will be coming. And I look forward to it having more standardized processes in place. But for now, I think our doulas are really just going forth and helping families where they need it most. And that's what we do, is we meet the families where they are, whether it is for advanced planning, whether it is for a terminal diagnosis, and going through the process of grieving that and what it looks like next steps. To active dying, to respite care, vigil, sitting, and everything that comes after, of even helping you plan strategically what your funeral looks like, whether it's cost effective or one of a kind. There are ways that doulas can kind of help you throughout the whole process.
And welcome to our viewers again. If you have questions, feel free to throw them into the chat. So when we compare it to birth doulas, I feel like what it has become, has turned into, is you're like, oh, this birth doula is there for the birth. And then you have a baby doula who is there to help with the care, when you get home. Are we having differentiation like that with end of life doulas, or is it still kind of a one size fits all?
That's a really good question. And absolutely, there are doulas that have specialties in certain things, right? Whether it's grief. We have some doulas that are really phenomenal with grief that others are not as comfortable. And so you have kind of these specialized doulas that do different things. There are a lot of doula programs and doulas that aren't really trained on what to do after somebody dies. And so their work usually tends to just kind of stop there, kind of like some birth doulas, right? You're there for the birth and maybe a couple visits after, but then that's it. And then the postpartum doula comes in. So there are different,
not baby doula, postpartum.
There are. I mean, there's different specialties. Everybody kind of has their own niche, and that's kind of the luxury of being in the doula work, is that you really have to know yourself and know your strengths so that you can show up for somebody where it's best suited. For me personally, I don't usually do a lot of grief work, but I work with families from all the way before to after the funeral. But the grief work, I rather hand that over to somebody who's really specialized in it, which is something I love about our program, is that we have so many doulas in our network that we are connected and collaborating and saying, actually, I have the perfect doula for you. Let me get you in contact. Because that's what it's about. It shouldn't be about, oh, I want to hoard all of the work here in Austin. There's plenty of death for everyone.
It's go around.
It's kind of finding, like, how are you going to be the best fit for that family? And it might not be you, and that's okay. Let's find somebody who is.
Right. Yeah. Again, our viewers, feel free to throw in your questions as well. So can we now go into what you were talking about with the doulas, end of life doulas, helping with the advanced care planning? So can you give us just a short summary of what is advanced care planning or advanced planning? I know it's huge and it entails a lot, but if people are just coming to this, this is their first introduction to it, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, the way I like to break it down is, what do you want to happen to you if you are unable to speak for yourself? What do you want to happen? What do you not want to happen? And then it's also, who do you want to designate to speak for you if you are unable to speak for yourself? So a lot of the advanced planning is really getting a prepared and plan in place so that you can go into action if anything was to happen. Whether you were in a car accident, that now you're on life support, and who's going to then make those decisions of what is best for you? Well, it's really hard for somebody to make those decisions if you've never had these conversations. You don't know what you don't know. And so a lot of this advanced planning is really just starting the conversation and talking about what are the things that are your non-negotiables. If that is, I do not want to have a ventilator, or I do not want to be resuscitated. And that's where you put these forms and directives in place to make sure that your wishes are honored. I speak about do not resuscitate, which I just want to touch on because we mentioned it in our listening club of the language behind it. And it sounds so harsh. Do not resuscitate. Like there's something that you can do, but you're choosing not to do or don't want to do. And that's really hard on a family member. So if, for example, your grandmother is 98 years old and she is a little bit more frail and she has lived a wonderful life, but she has some current health problems that have made it really hard for her every day. She has the conversation with her family that she does not want to be resuscitated if she was to have a heart attack. Do not resuscitate me. Well, that language, again, it just sounds so heavy. In other states, it's referred to as allow natural death. And that's what she's asking for. Just allow me to have natural death if I have a heart attack. Don't try to intervene. And so that's kind of what these directives are in place for, is to guide your representatives, your medical power of attorney, who is the person speaking for you if you are unable to speak for yourself, and guiding them through the decisions that you want or don't want if you're in a situation where you can't speak for yourself. And that's kind of what we go into. And we really go into also your values. Well, why don't you want that done? Why do you want that done? And we start really exploring what is most important to that individual so that we have that plan, that preparedness in advance, so that in the moment we're present and we're not just rushing and trying to figure it out, because that's very overwhelming. And so that's what a lot of this advanced care planning is. It's preparing for the things that we may potentially have to face, whether it is because of older age, whether it is because of a terminal diagnosis, a car accident, an illness. These are things that can happen to all of us and will eventually have to face. So it's nice to have this plan in place with the people who are going to be the representatives for you.
That sends my brain in two different directions, because
Yeah.
one, I want to know, like, how early we should be talking about, having these conversations. But then also, two, my mom and I keep on trying to talk about it. And this was a disconnect that I had too before getting, more into this world, is when people say advanced care planning or advanced planning, we automatically thought, like, end of life, we're, dead. What does it matter at that point?
Right.
And so I think there's, like, I don't know, a disconnect, whatever it is, like, not understanding that this is talking about before you're dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually a really good point that you bring up. And that's kind of something we talk about too, right? It's before you die and then after you die. And there are directives for after you die, because as somebody's medical power of attorney, you're only their medical power of attorney while they're living. And so as soon as that individual dies, you're no longer able to speak on their behalf. And so that's where the after death directives come into place to then dictate, well, what do you want done with your body? And who is going to be the one speaking for you on that part? And there is a big confusion because we just don't talk about it enough. And, you mentioned, well, how early do we start talking about this? I think anybody over 18 has to start making some of these discussions and decisions, because we just never know. Again, you could be in a car accident. You could, have a heart attack. I mean, there are different things that could happen at all ages that we want to be prepared for. And it's not an easy discussion. It doesn't have to start off with, okay, everybody sit down. This is Thanksgiving dinner. We're all here gathered, and this is the time we're going to talk about it. There are ways to kind of ease into it so that it's not just overwhelming. But you got to keep going and you got to keep trying. And it could be as simple as, if I was to have dementia, I really don't want to have no plan in place. I've seen it firsthand with my grandmothers, and it's very traumatic and it's very difficult of a journey, especially when that individual can't speak for themselves and you're almost guessing. And so that's kind of why we talk about all this. Like, let's start talking about it. Okay, 18 years old, we're talking about it, we're thinking about it, and the conversation just continues to grow stronger, and we start to really get to know that individual and what they want and don't want. Why is that important? Why did Andy say that? I remember we had that discussion. So anybody over 18, I recommend having something in place. And I just want to be very clear, it's advanced planning. We're never encouraging advanced like prepaying, which goes into the after death of the funeral contract and what am I going to do with my body? Those are two separate conversations.
Yeah. It's for those of you who are just joining us, I'm Andi Kenzie, creator of Kicking the Bucket. Please listen to the series, see the link below. And then also I'm talking here with Alex Casas, an end-of-life educator and doula, and we're discussing advanced planning. We're going to get into the funeral industry and the importance of community. So this, again, like I'm like, oh, what about this and this? So the dementia, that kind of is a great segue into that advanced dementia thing. Elective advanced directive for dementia. And then also like another misconception I think that's happening too is that people feel like you make this decision and that's it, and things change, right? As you get older, it might change. So I think that there is encouragement to keep on revisiting it every year.
Absolutely. Yeah. So me and my partner, we actually do our like annual recheck-in at the first of the year. And we go over all of our documents and our wishes and see if we're checking in to see if we're still in the same place. Do we still feel this way? Did anything change in our health history? Those are big triggers, right? If something happens medically for you, now it's time to relook at that paperwork and make sure that it's accurate and representing your current belief systems and values. If you get a divorce, if you get married, if you have children, really any kind of life transition, life event that might have you rethinking what your wishes are, it's a good time to look back at them and think, oh, do I need to update anything? Is my medical power of attorney still the person that is going to best represent me? Because that can change. And that's something we see so often where there's so much hesitation to complete your advance directives because it feels so final. Like, oh, this is engraved in stone. I can never change my mind. And that's absolutely not true. You can change your mind every 5 minutes if you want. It's just a matter of communicating and making sure that, let's say you are really good with your paperwork and you've notated who your medical power of attorney is. You've designated your directive to physicians and surrogates. You've completed your elected for dementia directive. You've done all of that. And you've also logged who you've given copies to. So that way, if you do have a change, whether it's a life change, whether you've moved, whether medical, then you go down your distribution list and you say, oh, I need to give another new copy to Andi, my medical power of attorney. And, oh, I need to give my physician another copy of my updated directives. And so really it's just, we do have to keep up with it because we are going to change, and that's okay. We're allowed to, but we just want to keep up with it and make sure it's still accurate. So a lot of people that feel like, oh, I wrote my will 10 years ago. I have it, it's all done. I encourage you to pull it out, read through it, check it in with it and see, is this still how I feel?
Yeah.
Is this still who I would designate my representative? Just think about it, because those are such personal decisions, and we're in the human nature to change.
That's a given too. Only certainty, everything's going to change, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about this elective advance directive for dementia?
Yeah, it's something that you can locate on the fcactx.org website. That is the Funeral Consumers Alliance of Central Texas. You can find the directive there and you can print it. You can actually find all of the Texas directives there. Print as many as you want, so that you can add that into your directives. That's something that, again, you can be very specific on what you want and don't want. And it was formulated by a lawyer here in town, or here in Texas. So it is a legal form that is accepted. But I also want to clarify that in the directive to physicians, our advanced directive of what we want done, there is a very kind of black and white format for it. It's just, do you want this or do you not want this? And you check and you initial and, okay, that's what I want or don't want. But there's a section that has 4 additional requests. That's the golden section. That's the section that you get to add in all the specifications of, well, I want you to put me on a ventilator, and if in 3 months there's no improvement, then I want you to go ahead and take me off the ventilator. Mm-hmm. That's where you get to be really specific. And that could also be a way of including the information for dementia, of the things that you would or wouldn't want. Now, this elected dementia form directive, it is legal. And again, you can print it out and add that to all of your directives. So that is the guideline of, if this happens, what do I want and don't want? Here is me speaking for myself if I am unable to speak in the future.
Is it something that you recommend doing it in addition to the
Absolutely.
general advance directive? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just another way to
detailed. Okay.
Yeah, get more detailed and to really kind of cover your assets, right? What is it that you want and don't want? Let's be very specific. And then we follow up by having these conversations so that the people that are representing us can ask questions and say, well, why do you feel that way? Or what if this was to happen? And then we can have that conversation. I would even encourage families to record it, have a Zoom session and record it so that everybody in the room that is there, that's going to be a part of your care team, has access to this video in the future of, oh no, mom did say that if this was to happen, she didn't want this, or she did want this. So it's, again, just that extra coverage to support you in making sure your decisions and wishes are honored.
We're trying to cover so much. So I guess just in terms of funerals, can you just very quickly tell us either, I don't know which is better, what are the most common misconceptions that people have about the funeral industry? Or do you think it's more valuable to share advice that you would give someone who is planning a funeral in advance for themselves or loved one?
Yeah, a couple things is that it is your legal right to walk into a funeral home and ask for a general price list. You do not need to meet with a funeral director. You do not need to sit down in a conference room. The funeral home should hand you a price list and you should be on your way. I say that because we do encourage families to compare at least 3 different funeral homes so that you can get a better understanding of the services they offer as well as the price. Because here locally in Austin, for a direct cremation, you can have it done for $695 or pay $4,000 for the exact same service. And so for families that are concerned about cost, it's always really important to compare. It's not always the closest funeral home to me is the best option or the one the family has always used. Compare and see what other options you have because you might be surprised that you could save a little money or you could find a different service somewhere else within your area. Another thing that I would always advise is the understanding that embalming is not a legal requirement in any 50 states, any of the 50 states. It is optional. Families have the option to choose embalming. It is not required. Now, there are funeral homes that have policies in place where if you're going to have a public visitation, then it is their policy that the individual is embalmed. But that is a choice for families. Always explore your options and always know that you do have room for customized and personal options too. You don't always have to follow the traditional way of doing it. And I say traditional lightly because for generations, we were doing natural burial. We were having
tradition in the past,
Right. And so our now conventional, traditional sense of funerals is a little bit different, but they're expanding in a way where you can still personalize and make it a meaningful ceremony, a meaningful funeral, a memorial of life. You can make it your own and it can still reflect the budget that you set. It doesn't always necessarily have to break the bank. You have options to make things really personal and beautiful and still cost effective.
And people can go to your website, palehurst.com, to find out more as well, and Funeral Consumers Alliance of Central Texas. So
yes,
yeah, because you never have time to talk about all of it.
I know.
So then perhaps as a wrap up, but also we'll end with final thoughts. But we mentioned and touched on this a little bit about communities. So how do you feel that communities can come together to create more connected end of life experiences, whether it's through the funerals or my mic, or even like the planning, just how can we bring communities more together in this arena?
I think it really starts at home and us talking more about it and being okay having the discussion about death and dying. It is inevitable. We are going to all die. Everyone we know is going to die. We will have to face that reality at some point, whether it's having a plan for somebody we love, having to deal with somebody's death that we love, or having to deal with our own incoming death. And so I really just encourage everyone to start at home, to start having the discussions, to bring it up, to be okay with it, and to find podcasts like this, to find resources that are willing to talk about it, to be open with it. It's really just going to kind of open the door. We're seeing a lot of these more natural burials, home wakes, where families are participating in the bathing ritual, in the dressing ritual, in, just simply being present to lay flowers. And that community participation also pays off because then the example is set of what's possible and it starts to trickle into the different circles that those individuals are in too. And so talking about it, even saying, I heard this really cool podcast that got me thinking about death and dying. Have you ever thought about what you want? It really all starts there, and it brings in a more accepting conversation for the whole community to be a part of, and being open to participating and showing up for others that need us, of how can we be of service, how can we learn more, how can we make this even better.
I feel like in some ways it's this sounds weird, but it's kind of exciting, right? So it's like this can be fun. Like, we're not thinking of it as like, this is our checklist, we check it all off, okay, that's done. It's this is an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
It can bring us together. It can help us live better and more fully. So
exactly.
Alex, thank you so much. Do you have any final thoughts, or that kind of summed it up? That was a lovely summary as well. Or anything that you want to just kind of send people with a takeaway or something to think about for the future?
Yeah. Stay informed, find options, and you have rights. And so explore that and find out what is most important to you, because most of the time that's going to dictate the next steps.
Mm-hmm.
So identify your values, keep the conversation going, and
Awesome.
Reach out if you have any questions.
Excellent. You can definitely reach Alex at those links down below. Again, encourage you to head to the Kicking the Bucket podcast, give it a listen. The site has all things Kicking the Bucket. Like, subscribe, follow, everything. Come back next week on August 13th. We're going to have a conversation with Amanda Fugit-Moss, who is the creator of Driving the Daisies, which is a dramedy musical film like about caregiving. So that's a fun conversation as well. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Alex. Thank you to our guests who are listening either now or in the future. We're going to sign off now. Goodbye, everybody. We hope to see you next time.